industry, and we are very, very grateful to that. So I guess, I don't know, something's wrong. Something fishy, I call it. But we are looking into filing a TRO to stop the importation. We are in the courts. We go the legal way. And then we are coming up with a proposal on how much should be imported and what are the things to do. As I said, we're not against importation. We do not want our country to suffer on very high prices. Ayaw din namin yan. We don't want that. We are a conscious industry, and the truth of the matter, our housewives are going to kill us. Our wives, they always found, ano ba yan, yung asukal, sobrang taas na sa I can no longer bake my cake. Oh yeah, it's a problem, but we know how to address it.
Mr. Lamata, since this is an open dialogue, we're inviting everyone to share also your concerns. We have our future leaders here with us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamata. And then next, Mr. Cuenca. Bob Cuenca of Albi, President of Albi.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Madam Vice President. Good morning, President Gloria. Hello. Here we are again. We know each other. We do have a problem with the setup now. Inputs very high. It's we cannot manage how this is going to affect us in the next crop year. The industry, Mr. President, has always been at the bottom of the priority of DA. Ever since budgeting, you look at rice, not the importation, but the money that is being spent on rice, on the agriculture, has always been the number one concern of the country. And sugar has always been under. We do our own research, right? Pilsurin. The budget of SRA, I believe, does not come everything from DA. It comes from the industry through its sugar links. And that is making, that is our industry where it is right now. What I'm asking, I'm sure you will be president and you will be our vice president. During your time, can we transfer the sugar industry to the office of the president?
Why would that be to your advantage?
During the time of your father, we were under the office of the president. And that was the time that the industry was exporting. We were not importing.
You were the biggest dollar earner for the Philippines.
Yes. And suddenly, look where we are. We are really, because the priority of government is not sugar, but we have been the whipping. Every time there's a high price, it's always the planter, it's always, we are not. We don't control prices. We sell every week, and you know all of that, we know that. But with this plan of maybe it needs a little more refinement, but if we are under the office of the president, then we go direct. We don't have to go through DA. The secretary is not very well versed on us. He imports during the peak season. How is that? It will kill us. The beneficiaries. How many beneficiaries do we have? Our membership in Marcoleta is more than 10,000. And 90% of that are beneficiaries. We need to protect them. and we have been selling every week. Every bidding week, every Thursday, we bid it out. It's an open bid. We get the check from the sugar trader. Friday, we issue how many? 3,000, 4,000 checks on the association alone. And this is weekly. How much is that in equivalent? 150 million weekly. And that goes to the beneficiaries. Now the beneficiaries are experiencing the high price of inputs. Kawawa sila, Mr. President.
But that seems to be, well, it's a general concern again around the whole agricultural sector. Pero hindi natin makontrol eh. Yung inputs, yun ang problema. And when I was listening to you talking about this, I kept thinking about what's happening in Ukraine. The prices of oil will definitely go up with what's happening there. And I have yet to understand why urea, well, we all know urea is oil, is a petroleum product. But when the prices of oil go up, urea goes up. When the price of oil comes down, it doesn't come down anymore. I remember, ma'am, in your time, we umakyat ng 650, nagre-reklamo na kaming lahat. Now it's already 2.5.
3,000 plus na po.
What can we do about that? Should the government buy in bulk? Baka may economies of scale dyan sa if the government buys in bulk and that makes it part of some kind of assistance. Hindi naman siguro tayo mag-violate ma'am ng WTO agreements if we do that. Is that considered a subsidy now?
No, you just allow everybody to import. The government becomes one of the importers. So no monopoly.
To import the inputs.
Everybody can import.
So then we will be compliant. So then in that case, but if the government can, because the government should handle a larger volume, maybe we should look into that. The other part that we have lost some, and again I hear it already here from the sugar planters, is the R&D. Ano yung R&D natin noon? What were we doing before? To find new varieties. You know, with global warming coming up, this is really become a big issue for all our crops now, because we have to find new varieties that are more resistant not only to pests but also to the changes in weather. So yeah, that is, we're hoping to do that not only palay, the rice, corn, high value crops and all that, but of course in sugar. But you seem to have had a system before in place. And how was it being done? And why did it stop?
Okay, as Bob was mentioned before, we were under the office of the President. And the DA was forced to give out budget for R&D under the Pilsurin.
Who conducts the R&D?
Yung government po, but
Which agency?
SRA, Sugar Regulatory Administration. We had here in La Granja, the biggest station, I think 150 hectares, no, or 200 hectares, earmarked for R&D. And completed laboratory, very nice, very beautiful. Thailand was copying here. And unfortunately, they pirated all our scientists. They brought it to Thailand.
Oh, really?
We were that good. We were that good. But then, as what happened, it no longer was under the office of the president, no more budget, wala. So, us, through our efforts, we leaned ourselves to put up an R&D, which is called Pilsurin. But of course, we can only afford so much. We're not government. We have expansive budgets. So we're just chugging along, but very slow.
But if we just talk about funding, will that solve the problem?
Oh yes, definitely. Oh yes. Immediately.
Yes, all right. So Those are the only aspects now that we are seeing in the rest of the agricultural sector. How is your yield as compared to Thailand, for example, or all the other exporting countries? Are we very far away? And then yung cost of production, and then the labor component of the cost of production as compared to others. How do we compare?
Well, we're not that far off as far as production is concerned, Thailand and the Philippines. But their cost of production is lower because they are subsidized by the government. Their electricity is very low. Government supplies them with irrigation. There's water all over their farms. And the fuel is subsidized. Fuel input, yes. Yeah, they subsidize the fuel input. So we cannot compete with them. That is why every time there is an importation, everything comes from Thailand. Everything comes from Thailand. And their sugar mills, they're the biggest in the world. They can mill 25,000-30,000 tons a day. But again, since the industry in Thailand is also, the generals are involved, when they collapsed, because they did collapse, all their loans were condoned. All the sugar mills, they were condoned. So it is being protected by the government. And it's very hard to compete.
Thank you, Mr. Cuenca. And before we continue, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of our former congressman and now our future mayor of Bacolod City, Mayor Albi Benitez. And of course, we also have Congressman Paano here with us of Abang Quad. And Congresswoman Julian Ferrer of the 4th District. Oh yeah, Congressman Kiko Benitez. Good morning.
Okay, next, Mr. Ramos. Wala na. Mr. JJ Sarosa. Ito lang talaga yung main concern natin, ha? Okay, ako naman magsasalita. Yung pinag-uusapan natin dito, baliwala yan. Kung hindi natin mapapanalo si BBM at saka si Estrada. So yung first step natin muna, panaluin natin yung senador na nandito at saka yung team Uniteam ni Inday at saka ni BBM. Okay? I'm sure the senators have this brilliant minded with regards to the sugar industry. Especially makatulong sila sa atin. Now we will support them because sila yung makatulong sa atin. Yung line yan, we will support them because sila yung makatulong sa atin. So, okay na yan. Tuduhan ta si BBM-SARA. Please. Para pagbalik naman ko sa Malacanang, tanan niya taga-negros nag-support mga planters, landowners, ga-expand kita. At ubang, hindi kita mahuya. Kay Inday, Sara, kay BBM. Ari na tanan sa aton. We have these 28 mayors out of 31. Parating pa yung isa na 29 na. We have these 6 congressmen. 8 na congressmen kasi. Hindi lang Bacolod kay Cong Albi. Half of Bacolod. Pero yung district niya sa 3rd district, solid. Inday, Sara, BBM, and Uniteam. So kanina, yung mga mayor sa taas, okay na sila. And then we have this short time lang sa inyo. So pasalamat tayo sa kay Ma'am GMA nandito. Ma'am, Madam, thank you very much. Langga kagin namin sa negros. Tapos, Inday, Sara, best effort kami diri nga ang inyo team, Uniteam ni BBM, Sir, Mr. President, we will deliver. We will deliver. Okay na sa inyo, ha? Yes. Tita Marilo also. Okay na? Wala na question?
Wala.
Mga senators, hindi gid kamo malipat diri ari ni subong ang senator. Hindi ni nila ang inyong request kung wala sa tulong ng mga senators. So So, Uniteam.
Speaking of that, speaking of our senators, is there legislation you feel that you need to remedy some of these problems that you were talking about? Para alam na nila yung magiging trabaho nila. Pag,
Pamilya na
CART has already lapsed, but DAR continues to insist that the land retention limit shall be 3 hectares, which is not an economy of scale in any language. So we have to clarify judiciously. So that means to say, remove the several layers of problems that they are facing right now. It can be done with the DA, with the proper choice of Agriculture Secretary who understands the problems of the industry. But the most important thing for me is to clarify CART.
If you have any other input or yes.
Just take your cue from Senator Sherwin. He's been helping the sugar industry ever since. Thank you, Mr. Senator.
Just to add, though, we actually signed a resolution, including myself, to postpone the talks on liberalization of the sugar industry. And I signed that precisely because I really feel that the problem should be focused on the inputs. Because, for example, urea, we don't have a fertilizer industry. Oil, we don't have an oil industry. So, by allowing importation, we're actually going to put a lot of pressure on the sugar industry, while the input industry is actually non-existent. So, in other words, we should really train our guns on the inputs by allowing importation of inputs, maybe looking at the tariff arrangements on inputs, so that the production of sugar will go down. So that's the reason why I signed it, because we're actually applying the wrong medicine to a problem in the sugar industry. In a nutshell.
Yes.
Are there any more who would like to give their input?
Mr. Marcoleta. Senator Marcoleta.
Just to add a few cents in the discussion, Mr. President. Initially, I think the problem is there is a very weak regulatory function here of the SRA. I know that the SRA from the longest time has been doing an annual forecast of yield. They try to approximate the total yield or production of sugar. But surprisingly, they do not have a counterpart target of demand. So puro siya, tina-target nila yung supply, but they do not target the demand. And then, it seems to me there is something wrong in the way importation is being advised. Hindi tayo nagkakaroon ng advice as to why we will import. For example, today, gusto nila mag-import ng 200,000 metric tons. I think last year they imported 84,000 metric tons of sugar already. And then we have to classify sugar A, B, and C. I think sugar A is for America, B is our consumption, C is the buffer. Wala ko nakikitang buffer, Mr. President. This is where we are really lagging behind. And then, kung titingnan natin yung 28 sugar mills, I think 12 of them are in Negros, in Panay, Cebu, and Leyte, supplying about 56% of the production. Matatanda na itong mga ito, Mr. President. Kaya nga, nagsasuffer din yung production. If you compare it with Thailand, there is a wide gap between the production in Thailand. Kasi masyado ng matanda. Yung iba kasi, yung Parang sineta pa ni Ferdinand Magellan, Mr. President. Ganun nakatanda yun. So if you have 420,000 hectares of sugar land, dapat dedicated na to, Mr. President. Dapat wag nang gagalawin yun for any reason. Like for instance in Israel, nakausap ko yung ambassador nila. If the land is dedicated to production, whatever happens, hindi nila papalitan yun. Kaya palagi tayong merong. So kung ang yield is, let's say, I think the recovery rate is, I think, 9%. In the 1990s up to early 2000, maganda yung production po natin, di ba? Medyo bumagsak na because of yung mataas na po yung inputs. So there are many things that we need to study. And I think we will be able to do that, Mr. President, under your administration. Thank you very much po.
Thank you, Senator Marcoleta.
And then also I'll pass the microphone to Congressman Aldi Benitez.
Mr. President, with respect to legislation, we did pass a law already. It's called the Sugar Cane Industry Development Act. It was passed sometime 2014, and that was with all the support of the industry, which mandates the national government to appropriate a minimum of 2 billion per year. But that never happened. It was always underfunded, and for whatever reasons, it came short to the concept and the funding requirement of the industry. So if we can just really follow that law that we have passed, we worked on it, and the industry will probably get better off. No? Simply lang yan, when we were talking about funding, it was really now that we have the legislation in place. It was passed during your time, Senator Win, and we just need it to be implemented properly.
Senator Gadon.
Hello. Ito. Earlier, before we started this meeting, GMA, President GMA, short talk with the planters. And then everybody agreed that there should be a consolidation among the small owners, land owners. And that I suggest that if that is a solution, one of the solutions, why don't we initiate the consolidation now, even without legislation? And we can try ayun nasa land reform pala, yung tinamaan ng land reform, ng mga small landowners, why don't we initiate the consolidation now before we tsaka doon sa mga tenants. It can be an internal arrangement among them before we proceed with the legislation on consolidation. Because in the okay, ma'am. So President GMA explains now to me that under the land reform law, they cannot they cannot mahirap. So we really need a new legislation for that. And the Uniteam, the senatorial candidates will of course support these efforts. Pag nanalo kami, sabi ni Vice Gov. Thank you.
Dalawa na lang because may schedule din si Madam Vice President at saka si Mr. President. So, 2 more questions or okay na? And then sa mga senators, ready pa pahinga for the rally later? Oo. So, okay na? Yes, Mr. President. Yes, Cong Kiko of the 3rd District.
No, just to announce, sir, that we are having in the lower house a motu proprio hearing on sugar warrior number 3 and its impact to the sugar industry on Tuesday next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kong Kiko. We would like also to acknowledge Congressman Gerardo Balmayor of the 1st District.
Okay. Ito lang yung reminders ko ha, yung sinabi ko kanina. Ito lang yung last word ko. Suportahan natin sila, yung Uniteam, because sila yung tutulong sa atin. Tutuhan ta. Okay, thank you very much sa time ninyo. Sugar leaders, sugar association leaders, sugar industry natin, ma'am. Pahinga tayo because 3:30 we have this caravan. Halin sa Silay, pangatlo na sa bread ko sa rally.